Good afternoon, America, and all of you who may be listening throughout this expanse called Earth. It is March 8th, 2021. The new WCEG Network welcomes you. This program is Issues and Answers, and I am your host, Norman A. Carter Jr. On your computer or smartphone, you can view or hear us by typing WCEG talkradio.com in your browser, and then when you get there, hit enter. On the next screen, click the live stream tab. On your smart TV, just click the YouTube icon. I've done that. It's so easy. And search for WCEG Network. We'll pop right up. WCEG stands for Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. Our programming goal is to leave you more informed and more empowered than you were before you tuned in. Our motto, we speak life into the community. You may like us on Facebook and view us live there also. Follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. You find us at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. Disclaimer time, alert. The topics and opinions on issues and answers are those of me, Norman A. Carter Jr., and my illustrious guest, and not the WCEG Network. So leave my boss alone. This is my show, and these are my words and the words of my guest. Criminal justice reform. It has become another one of those catchy phrases babbled by people who have little interest in criminals, jaundiced ideas about justice, and no concept about what reforms are needed. Worst yet, just as with police reform, most of the noise, and that's just what it is, noise, comes from people with little or no experience in the area of which they speak. Honest police officers and honest people who have been abused by immoral policing are seldom used as resources. People who have served time in prison, worked with prisoners, or who have been actively involved in efforts to rehabilitate those who we incarcerate seldom sit on panels of inquiry or resolution. Today, we have such people before us on the WCEG Network's Issues and Answers. All of my guests today are keenly aware of the inner workings of outreach systems and paths to success for those who have been incarcerated in our prison systems. I first like to welcome Mr. Blue Saunders. He is an entrepreneur, an ex-convict who changed his life and started a business. Before starting a window cleaning business, he spent 3 years as an inmate in Lexington, Kentucky's federal prison. Today, he enjoys his daughters, his fiance, his bulldogs, see the picture in the background, and managing small business. He is available for community and coordinating youth projects, as well as mentoring. And you can reach him at blue@bulldogwindowcleaningllc.com. And we'll hopefully repeat that a little bit later on in the program. Next, I'd like to welcome Reverend Jason Boggs. He hails from Lexington, Kentucky. A little bit about his background. He fell in with a bad crowd and began selling drugs at 13 years old. This enterprising young man, by 15 years old, had his own crew of 10 selling drugs. Excuse me. He spent a year and 4 days in juvenile prison. After 2 months in prison, he gave his heart to Jesus Christ. Shortly thereafter, Pastor Omar Fisher came to share his message of Jesus Christ through rough rap and spoken word poetry. He began preaching the gospel after being released from incarceration on December 8th, 2008, and he has traveled across the country with Pastor Fisher. And who is this Pastor Fisher? Pastor Adarrel Omar Fisher was born in Indianapolis, Indiana. His father was a devout Christian Panamanian immigrant. His mother was from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Pastor Fisher attended Southern Methodist University and was captain of the track and field team during his junior and senior years. In 1999, he received a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering degree. He went on to the University of Pennsylvania, where he received a Bachelor of Science in Bioengineering degree in 2001. Pastor Fisher began his professional career at Johnson & Johnson as a scientist for 3 years. There, he attained 1 patent using ultrasonic cavitation. Maybe look up that. And some of that, they use that for fat reduction, I believe, and some other things. 2004, Pastor Fisher founded the Making Others Righteous Christian Poetry and Rap Prison Ministry. It was an offshoot of the Saints Prison Ministry. And this came about as a result of his feeling the need to do something about the mass incarceration of African American males. Pastor Fisher's ministry has set him traveling worldwide. He is a licensed and ordained Baptist minister on the ministerial staff of St. Philip's Baptist Church of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. In addition, he is a professional trainer, personal trainer. He will be completing his master's degree at Dallas Theological Seminary in the summer of 2021. That doctorate degree has got to be somewhere coming up soon. It's got to be. He has written 1 book. It's called Confrontations, Finding Faith Behind Bars. He has published 1 Christian musical album. I listened to it last night. Who is MOR? And that was published in 2013. All right, now I love the cover. I tried to get a copy of it. I couldn't do that, but thank you. And Pastor Fisher is a devoted father and husband. He is married to Nicole Cheryl Fisher. They have 2 wonderful sons, Isaiah and Isaac, and 2 amazing daughters, Naya and Ayla. And we welcome all of you to WCEG Issues and Answers. Wow, that was a lot. That was a lot. But you guys are qualified, really qualified to get into. And before I get into a whole bunch of questions and answers, Pastor Fisher, I'd like to begin with you. You began your ministry, I believe, in the home of your father in Panama. Is that correct?
So that's where I wrote the book. That's where I wrote the book.
Okay.
One of the reasons that I wanted to invite Mr. Sanders on this show is because he was, and him and I have talked about this before, and he knows about this. I wrote about this in the book. He was the person I went to go visit when he got incarcerated. Blue and I grew up together. His grandmother lived right down the street from me, and we played basketball together, had a lot of fun, going playing video games back when we used to go to arcades. Mm-hmm. And so he was incarcerated, and I went to go visit him out there in Lexington, Kentucky, actually, where he was incarcerated, a federal facility. And that was the first time I had ever stepped foot inside of a prison. And so having seen it for myself, I'd heard about it. We've seen movies, heard about it, but I had never seen it. And it just opened my eyes, seeing these men lined up against the wall, called out by their numbers while their family members are sitting there, grown men, being told what to do, when to sit down, don't get too close. Grown man telling you don't get too close to your loved one, back up, keep your hands to yourself, these kinds of things that you would tell a child. And I had never had that experience. And then, seeing so many Black men in there really just broke my heart. And I shared that with Mr. Blue. And it's funny because I had never seen anybody tell Blue to do anything. You know what I'm saying? And
Lot of
then
agreement there.
and then seeing him in this type of situation was just like, my goodness. And then really quickly, I don't want to take up too much time.
No, come on.
For that first visit, that he sat down, and for about the first 30 minutes, he told me how terrible it was. And I think he said he had got his arm broken. He told me about that situation, told me about the fights, he told me about the food, he told me about at that time we were both single. He told me that, there weren't any good looking women in there. And so he just is saying, like, this is horrible. And so I'm sitting on the edge of my seat saying to myself, like, wow, it's like a movie playing out in front of me. And then what he said to me that really, this is when it hit me. He said, you know what? It's crazy. And I said, what next? And he said, a lot of these guys have been in prison before. And I remember him saying that to me. And I was just like, what? Like, no women, no, terrible food, told what to do, people getting in fights, got to look over your shoulder, all this kind of stuff. I said, people come back. I could see you coming the first time and say, oh, okay, I'm never doing this again. But then people leave out and come back. And I remember looking it up on the internet when I got home, and the recidivism rate, they said nationwide was like 70%, something like that, between like 65 and 70%. And then it's even higher for Black males of, just going in and out of prison. And I said, I have to do something about it. And then as I told Blue, when I got home, I forget if it was Lil Wayne or Biggie Smalls, one of those rappers. I had turned on some music, like in my car on the way home from the airport. And I remember like listening to it. And that was like the first time it hit me, like, wait a minute, why do we rap about drugs and violence and all this stuff if it's going to lead to incarceration? Because that's not a place I ever want to be. I mean, I was like, I'm never going there. Like, if I don't have to, and I'm not going to stay there ever. So I wanted to do something. I was like, there has to be some way that I can help, like inform people, encourage people. So that's why I got involved with prison ministry in 2003. And then in 2004, I started my own prison ministry.
Well, was it there that he gave you a little prison reality check where he made the statement about prison is not for rehabilitation?
Yeah, he just opened my eyes to the whole situation, and I'm sure he can tell you more about it. But from my perspective, it just, I had, like I said, I'd seen it on television, seen it on, movies and things like that. But when you see it in real life with somebody that and you see the difference, like, this is somebody we'd hang out, we do this, we go to play basketball, video games, we go to the mall. This is somebody who I respected, I loved, who I had known for years since we were young. I think Blue and I started hanging out in like 6th grade or something like that, since I was young. And then to see them treated like that, even just I was only there for, I think, 2 hours, but to see them, walked out and told what to do and all these kinds of things. It was, and then hearing his story and hearing, the truth about prison, like guys come in and out. A lot of, people get stuck here. There's people here that have time on their lives that they're not going home. People are going to be here for the rest of their lives. Hearing these terrible stories, like, wow, being separated from your families. People, I remember at the time I went to go visit Blue, I think he said the only person had come to visit him was his mom, or I think it was maybe one other person had come to visit him. And he's somebody who everybody knew Blue, like we all, right. So I was just like, wow, to be like sort of separated from everyone, and for an extended period of time, just all the different aspects of it, just, it spoke to me. And I realized that this is not a place I ever want anybody that I know. I don't think anybody would want to go here. And I think that if I could help people not go there, as well as go into prisons and help people break the cycle, which I truly think that's why I go in as, doing Christian rap, Christian poetry, because I think I believe Jesus can change people from the inside. And so I wanted to use that vehicle of rap, use the vehicle of poetry, short sermons, tell stories, whatever I could do to help people get to know Jesus so that they can be delivered from a life of criminal behavior and hopefully make better decisions and live a better life that will not lead them to be reincarcerated in the future.
Well, Mr. Sanders, how does it feel knowing you've had some effect on really for the part of the impetus for this new ministry? How does that make you feel?
I'm so humble, and I'm glad that in my lifetime, I've been able to have a positive from a negative effect on somebody's life and outlook on life. During the times that everything happened and during the times that, Omar spoke about, was an interesting time in my life as well. So for him to get what he got from his side of the fence, I'm grateful for that. And I guess just as grateful is what I got from being in the inside of the fence, because it is a story in its own to tell. And just being able to affect somebody or a multitude of people with just my experience, like he said, if I can do that and keep people or guide or shift or steer people from having to go that route is a many blessings that I couldn't fathom what it can be done or what I can do for other people.
Fantastic. Reverend Boggs, you were sort of fertile ground already when you encountered Pastor Fisher. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. The thing that really just touched my heart is I was really, just got saved. I was incarcerated at that point, just 2 months after being saved, God had delivered me. I had a pastor came by and said, what if I told you I have the key to get out of here? And I said, man, I want to get out. Like Omar was saying, when Omar came, I didn't know Jesus. And so when he had came in and talked about, Christian rap, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know you could rap for God. I thought that it would be, when you get saved that you couldn't rap. You had to get away from all that. And you have this standard of religion instead of a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so Omar showed me that having a relationship with God is what matters the most. And, God, there's no such thing as Christian music, only Christian lyrics.
I got you. And that sort of turned you around, and then you went out and embarked on your own as far as preaching. Did you begin preaching together with Pastor Fisher, or did you go out on your own?
I began preaching on my own, but also had it on my goal to, really reach out to those that had helped me the most. And Omar, God used Omar in such a mighty way in my life. And so in 2011, with making others to San Francisco, Sacramento, gave their heart to Jesus Christ.
Okay. Well, we're having a little problem picking you up, but I guess we'll get over it. Pastor Fisher, you brought up, and I was very touched by something you said when you were at Eastern University. My gosh. Eastern Unit in lovely Texas.
Yeah,
where
Love Lady. Mm-hmm.
Love Lady, where you said that you found that through what you do, as far as the Christian poetry rap, that you felt an overwhelming peace after feeling a lot of very nervous or about it before. Would you comment on that a little bit?
So yeah, first of all, Eastham is it's a famous prison. I don't know if you the history, if everybody knows the history on that. I think that's where Bonnie or from Clyde,
Clyde
Barrow. That's where he was incarcerated. So they tell you that when you come in there, and they tell you that, the famous people who were here and all those kinds of things. But it was it was a wonderful experience when I was there, sharing the word of God, sharing the poetry, sharing the rap at with the men there, and I made some wonderful relationships there. But yes, it's, there was an amazing sort of, I guess, transformation as, we as ministers, all of us actually, we prepare ourselves, we study, we practice, whatever it is we're doing, whether it's cleaning windows, whether it's doing Christian poetry, but then, we go out and do what we do. And for me, when I go into the prisons, it's, it's Christian poetry, Christian lyrics, as my brother, Reverend Boggs says, and, sharing that message is a message of peace, is a message of joy, is a message of hope in the end, because no matter what the situation is, whether you're going to be in this facility for the rest of your life, whether you're getting out next week, I truly believe that, I'm doing God's work, and that Jesus is the answer. And so I've had a sense of peace, and just, a sense of peace that just passes all understanding. And so it's a beautiful thing when it gets to that point.
One of the things that I wanted to mention, and we want to go back, I'd really like to stick with making others righteous, which is your ministry, for a while. And what I'd like to ask is of Reverend Boggs and Blue Saunders, what has making others righteous meant to each of you? How has it impacted your life? And how has it caused you to impact the lives of others? And Blue, I'd like to begin with you.
All right, what it means to me so much is, the word to me that sticks out so much is the righteous. Knowing that my brother was just righteous in heart and really wanting to reach out and still be there for me. Just like you said, you don't know how many people I knew before being inside versus the people that I knew during the time I was there. It went from almost thousands to a handful of people. And it just means so much, because if I can just be as righteous as Omar was to me during that time, to just one other person that I could help with that kind of righteousness, then that's what means so much. And if that one person could do it to somebody else and say, I was the one that helped them, like I could say Omar was the one for me, then it can just take off and go, who knows how far down. So just the righteousness means so much for me. And, his love and the love of all of the people that he's working with during this time has just been, it just means so much.
I'm hearing a theme here, Reverend Boggs.
I echo exactly what Blue said. And, for God to send Omar and to have Omar come out and share the gospel, and to let us know that, there's a different way of doing things. We don't have to operate the same way. We don't got to sell drugs. We don't got to go out to the streets. That, there's a way to make it out of it. And that, not only is there a way for us to make it out of it, but there's hope for everyone around us. And so, making others righteous is exactly what it says. We're not making them righteous. We're making them righteous through Jesus Christ. And we're showing them that there's a different way than selling drugs. We're showing them there's a different way than getting involved with the gang, that you have family. And even when you don't have family, we have each other. And God has a plan for our life. And, through every mess, there's a message.
I tell you, Pastor Fisher, I'm hearing a lesson in discipleship here.
Absolutely.
That seems to be the theme that's running here.
And I think that it's, that's really what this is. It's like somebody, even though I wasn't incarcerated, somebody helped me to get to the point to where I'm at today. I got to know Jesus Christ at a Christian summer camp, and somebody took the time to explain it to me. I was blessed with two wonderful parents who made sure, I mean, Blue could tell you, made sure Sunday, if you didn't go to church, you didn't go outside. So it was, my parents instilled that in me, and, instilled in me, don't do this, don't do that. They helped me, formulate my relationship with God in the beginning, reading the Bible, praying with me and things like that. So I had people who, I have mentors, people who helped me along the way. And then when I got involved in prison ministry, I was discipled, and now I was doing discipling. And so this is all just a fulfillment of the Great Commission, and what Jesus told us to do, to go make disciples, teaching them the things that he taught us, things in the scripture, things that, we've learned in church, in the Bible, and from our God-fearing parents, so all of these things. And the one thing, and I noticed, and this is, no slight against anybody, but a lot of times when I go into the prisons, I hear stories of people, and I know a little bit about Jason Boggs' story, and I know some of Blue's background as well, but I hear stories of people who didn't necessarily get that growing up. And so I'm blessed. I consider myself blessed that I had two God-fearing parents that made sure that I got something. I didn't do everything right, but that I got something, and that I was pointed in the right direction. And a lot of times, and I'll just tell you this really quickly, I was in a facility. I can't remember exactly which facility it was, but I was in a prison once. It was about 250, 300 men, adult facility. I was talking to them, and I just asked the question. I said, how many of you all love your mother? And everybody puts their hand up, and I was trying to go somewhere with it. And then I said, how many of you love your father? Only about 20% of the room put their hand up. And it's just, I'm not blaming it on, fathers not being there, but those things play a role. There's a lot of different issues that can lead to incarceration, whether it's low income, whether it's single parent household, whether it's foster care system, whether it's, school system. There's a lot of different issues that can lead to incarceration. But for whatever reason, it seems like a lot of the men inside the prison, there was something that was missed, there was something that was lacking. Not to say that I had everything, because I didn't have everything. Like I said, my parents did the best they could, and I was blessed that they did what they did do. But one thing I know I did have was Jesus, and my parents instilled that from the door. And so if I can give them that, everything else can come. I don't believe some people believe the solution is more education. Some people think the solution is more money. If people were educated, they wouldn't go to prison, but that's not true. If people had more money, they wouldn't go to prison. That's not true. Because there's people in prison that got money, but I do believe that they can change on the inside. And if I can give them that, and if they can truly change on the inside, then I've done what I'm supposed to do, what Christ has instructed me to do. And so that's I'm just trying to be obedient to the word and make others righteous. Amen.
Yeah, it's sort of it's evidenced by something I read recently where Jesus was talking about the changing of the heart and how that comes out, and that's what really counts, and not necessarily what goes in, but what comes out of you. So how about
what comes out of a man that defiles a man? Yes,
this is true.
Amen. Absolutely.
And that's what you do. Who is MOR? I got to talk about this. For all of you who are listening and watching, it is available on iTunes still, even though it came out in 2013. And I found the words. Are all three of you participating in that album?
For the album, just myself and Reverend Boggs are on the album. There's a couple other people on the album as well. But yeah.
I thought somebody with a name like Blue would really be in there, but
no, Blue's just our bodyguard. You see, he's security.
Everybody stay back.
Stay back. Keep all the group back.
One of the things that I found, there were 3 songs that jumped out at me. Jump for Jesus, Get Your Life Right, and Shine Bright. I mean, those jumped out. But what struck me is that you subtly suggest corrections to misdirections. You kind of brought that up earlier, of some contemporary rap songs. And you turn those misdirections to directions for a better life. Dance Like David Dance, Boys Pull Up Your Pants. That's from Jesus, Jump for Jesus. Get your mind right, pick up your Bible, put your weed down, put your gun down, get your life right. From Get Your Life Right. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Okay. So we need you. And Norman, if you want to be our background dancer, we need that. You know all the lyrics.
No,
Hype man.
Hype man.
One of the things I want to say is that all of them seem to require some biblical knowledge, which you talked about, but are more rooted in daily life experiences of young, impressionable people who would be both receptive to the contagious rhythm, because it does make you want to bounce a little bit, but also have an understanding of just where you're coming from. Is that what you get from your listeners?
I believe so, and Reverend Boggs can talk about it more because he got to experience it firsthand. But yes, I believe that that's basically the idea. How I started it is I just basically took songs that were hit rap songs.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did Snoop Dogg, Lil Wayne, took like hit rap songs and would just get the instrumental, try to use a similar hook, but something positive, something, biblical, positive, and just, change it up a little bit. And so when I get into the juvenile facilities, especially, and they hear like, they hear this rap song, this Lil Wayne or Snoop or whoever rap song, they say, oh, that's my song.
Mm-hmm.
And then they hear me come,
Right.
do a little something different with it. And it's a way to positively, first of all, it's a way to speak their language.
Right.
A lot of these young guys, and I used to be young, but the younger guys, these, teenagers especially, they don't want to come to hear a sermon, maybe not right away, at least. They don't want to come hear a long, 60-minute sermon, but they'll listen to, a 3-minute rap song. And it could be the same message as the sermon. We just got to condense it and make it a little catchy for them. And next thing you know, they're in. Because I mean, that's basically what rap music is. It's catchy, it's short, it's quick, it's energetic, and it doesn't take much. You turn some of these songs on, it's like, okay, it took about 5 minutes to write that. But so it doesn't take too much.
Jason, jump right in.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Omar. One of the things that we like to do is to be able to just kind of speak their language and as Omar was saying, in a lot of the songs like Shine Bright, there's so many different things that people try to personify themselves as, and so the world's so dark, and we want to just be that light. We want to be that person that say, hey, we got everybody else telling us how we're going to fail, how things are corrupt, but at this point, we're able to tell people how they can be successful.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Mr. Sanders, you mentioned in the Pastor Fisher quoted you in Confrontations. I mentioned this before, that you said prison is not for rehabilitation. And can you explain what you meant by that? And do you still feel the same way?
Absolutely. Prison is not for rehabilitation. it's unfortunately just a holding facility to just let people out to turn right back around and come back. During the time that I was there is nothing that the system helped me do. Nothing that I had to look forward to going and doing through them. It was all a mindset of my own to decide to change, to do better and want better, so that the time that I left here, I could actually utilize this time for a better life on the other side. You know, no help. You know, the majority of the people, like Omar said, they are either already been here a time or two or on their way back before they've even left. So, you know, you can't point the finger enough at avenues to point to, but it's just, it was no help. You know, I don't think they care enough about all of the individuals there. You know, once you're ex-conned or conned, you know, labeled, you know, you're bubblegum on the bottom of the shoe, you know. So, you know, why would I even bother wasting my good time, you know, with this individual? So you really have to change your mindset. And that was the biggest thing for me, just a different mindset. A lot of the times I hear Jason said Jesus changed his heart, but Jesus had changed my mind, like my way of thinking and my attitude and things. I think my heart was already there. You know, I came up around Omar and his parents and my grandparents and people who were, you know, Christians. So I had that in my heart. I just didn't have the mindset. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. I really didn't really have direction. So, you know, I could look at it now and say that the way that I came up, oh, prison was, you know, I was on my way before I even knew I was going to end up being there. And then when I ended up there, it was like, I can't say, how did I get here? Because I do sooner than later, if I kept down this avenue, it was where I was going. So, you know, even getting there, asking them for the help or the rehabilitation, I knew that wasn't going to happen. I just had to decide then mentally what it is I was going to do and wanted to do so that I could just be and do better when I left this place.
I think what you said is as a theme throughout the book of Confrontations, where the healing and the cleansing and the changing has to come from within. It doesn't come from without. But that goes right into something else I wanted to bring out. We hear the phrase of life after incarceration often. Evidences in our society by employment practices is a life of incarceration. Returning citizens are condemned for life to be challenged in obtaining suitable and stable employment. Pastor Fisher, in Confrontations, you stated, once prison doors close, a lot of other doors tend to close. College,
Absolutely.
voting, successful career, active father, etc. That's just a sad fact.
It's so unfortunate, and it's not a surprise. You know, as Blue said, it's not a surprise that so many men go right back. You know, you hear some of these stories and situations that I talk to guys. I've seen guys. I've talked to them face to face. Guys that have come out, you know, with good intentions, and gone right back. And it's set up basically for them to fail. And you know, you really have to have a strong mindset. You really have to. I truly believe you have to be focused. You have to be resilient because it's difficult. It's difficult. I mean, one example is, you know, a lot of times these guys, they were making some good money before they went into the prison. They come out, it's hard to get a job. That's not, I mean, these are not excuses, but the deck is stacked against them. You've been incarcerated for 2, 3, 4 years. You come out, your children, they didn't stop growing. They're 4 or 5 years older now, and they didn't know you. How do you get back into their lives? That's difficult. They may have lost respect for you because of the situation. They may have I've heard stories of one of my friends of mine who was incarcerated, came out, and unfortunately my friend Michael Barnes, who Reverend Boggs knows, he did 20 years. He came out, his son was a grown man and selling drugs. And so he was following in his father's footsteps, and his father was didn't even realize it until he came out. And then his son ended up 2 years after he came out of prison, his son ended up getting shot and killed. And so how do you deal with that, knowing that, or blaming yourself in that situation? So there's a lot of difficult situations. Voting, I mean, you feel like, and a lot of them are disenfranchised, and so they definitely can't vote while they're in prison. And then many of them don't get it's difficult to vote once they get out. You can't run for public office. You can't get school loans in a lot of cases. So, how do I get an education? Do I have to pay for it all myself, working at McDonald's because that's the only job I can get? So it's just, a lot of these things are very difficult. And you and I had just, Norman, you and I had just corresponded about Maxine Waters and that whole issue, ban the box and all of that. Employers, as soon as they see, oh, this person went to prison, they're putting you on the bottom of the stack or throwing that resume away. So it's like the scarlet letter, unfortunately. And it's unfortunate how we treat people, because if, the best case scenario, I think, is, okay, if we're sending somebody to prison, if we decide, okay, this person did this crime, they're going to prison, it should be, that's paying their debt to society. It should be over. All right. They should come out, have a clean slate. They should get a, fair shot just like anybody else. But that, unfortunately, is not the case. We hold it against them, especially as an adult, for years and years and years, and don't allow them opportunities, and then get upset when they go back to prison and we haven't given them a chance. And one of the quotes that I really like, and I forget exactly where I heard this from, but they said prison is the only business that succeeds when it fails. It's the only business that succeeds when it fails, because we believe the goal is to prevent you from doing further crime, and that you come out and be a productive citizen. But the reality is, people come out and they go right back in. And they keep returning over and over again. And in return, with the failure of the prison system, we are building more prisons.
It's self-perpetuating.
Yeah, self-perpetuating. Yeah. So a business, a model that's failing, and we're expanding it. And so it's just, but there are a lot of, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. There are a lot of people who have gotten out, like my man Blue, my man Jason, have gotten out and are doing the right things, aren't going back, because Blue knows if he goes back, I ain't coming to visit him no more. So I might go visit Jason one more time, but I'm not going out there. I'm not going to visit Blue anymore. He's too old for this.
Way too old for this now. I had that conversation with somebody recently too. I have a really good friend of mine, and he is a really good guy, man, and he is still caught in the streets. And I took him to breakfast, and I almost came to tears because I was telling him where he's on his way to. But it is so hard for him, seemingly in his mindset, to stop. And I keep telling him, you don't realize the downfall, and all of the friends and all of the women and all of the money, you're gonna have none of it. Can you see yourself now? Or could I be somebody to you now to help you stop now? Because if you don't, you are on your way to prison. You just don't know it yet. And I want so bad for him to understand that before he has to get to that point. And another thing really quick too, what Omar said about the job. When I first came home, I thought being honest, looking for employment was the avenue to take. So I remember that, I'll never forget, I had an application at a car detail shop, and I had this little spill, I was, adamant about work. I was like, let me show you better than I can tell you. Don't look at me from paperwork, just look at me through what I'm able to do. He literally took my application and looked at me, and he didn't even wait for me to leave to throw it in a trash can. He threw it in the trash can while I was standing in his face and told me I'm just wasting my time. And
Guys, I hope that Blue, I hope that more people are listening to just what you said. That's devastating.
yeah,
That's and once that, for a lot of people, once that happens, you give up. I mean, and Pastor Fisher talked about resiliency. I mean, not that many people are that resilient when something happens like that, because the first thing you think is that, well, you know what? I'm going to be going through more of the same stuff. I've got to find another way. And usually that other way is not a good way, which leads me into something that Pastor Fisher alluded to. And I'd just like to bring it up for our listeners. Representative Maxine Waters of California and Representative David Trone of Maryland introduced the Workforce Justice Act, late last Wednesday for consideration to be enacted into law. A provision of this bill would remove the question of whether an applicant has served time for crime from job applications. And I already know your feelings on that, but I think there's some jobs where that might be relevant, where someone like a police officer, a pharmacist, maybe a bank employee, healthcare professional. But on the other hand, how long does that last? I mean, if you've been living a productive life, and prison is 5 years behind you, why does that inhibit you going anywhere? I know I worked in the hospitality industry, and if you come in and you mark down that you had a criminal history, you were basically out the door. They want nothing to do with you. So, and Congressman Trone quoted something that I think is relevant to what we were talking about. He says, right now, far too many justice impacted individuals, primarily people of color, aren't being given a fair shot at employment because of their criminal history. When my company, his company, banned the box and hired 500 returning citizens, we saw a higher retention rate and more dependable employees. Banning the box isn't just good for business, it's just the right thing to do and bring us one step closer to a more just society. Who would be more desperate to hold on to a job and do a great job than somebody who has lost everything and understands what it's like? Throw that out there for anybody to answer.
Oh, definitely. I tried to preach just that. I could work 10 times better than everybody here was the biggest thing I would say. But it was just that box that just completely eliminated me. Even having a job, marking a box, and only to be fired later because of, the box. Here I am, no vacation, not missed a day, not even crying about a raise or anything, just wanting to be productive and work every day to take care of myself was almost too much to ask for. So, yeah.
That's just, it's almost unconscionable in what was supposed to be a forward-thinking, productive society. And we're holding on to values that were established hundreds of years ago, which really have no relevance to what's going on now. Not that maybe it had any relevance then, because you put someone in jail, well, let's say for theft, and your time, they say, okay, we're going to do a year in prison. And after a year in prison, you have paid your debt to society. But once you get out and serve that time, you find that you're still paying, and you pay for the rest of your life. That
Absolutely.
shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, and it's so unfortunate. And Norman, something that you alluded to earlier when you were talking about jobs that maybe it might be an issue with. I even would challenge that. Even police officer, in any of these jobs. And when one of the days it hit me, and this is, you just made me think about this. They don't even they check volunteers that have come with me when I'm going into the prisons. I've had people who they've said, State Correctional Institution at Rockview, Bellefonte, PA. I had a former inmate who wanted to come with me, give his testimony, share, Jesus has been my Lord, Savior of my life, turned my life around. They said he couldn't come back into the prison because of his criminal record. And so that doesn't make any sense to me. How are you saying somebody can't come into prison and say something positive to the inmates because they have a criminal record? Like, they're even denied doing something good in the prison. And so it's ridiculous what how we continue to punish people when they've already served their debt to society. And I would challenge that any position, there shouldn't be any positions where your criminal record should come into play. Now, I understand why it is in some cases, and you could go back and forth on some of those, but that we continue to punish people unnecessarily. If the punishment is going to be you can't have a job, then why are we sending people to prison? If the punishment is going to be we're not going to give you the right to vote, okay, then let that be the punishment. But we send people to incarceration, have them be incarcerated for 2, 3, 4, 10, 20 years, however, and then continue to punish them after that. It's like, it's a double whammy. So it's just, I think we need to really look at this whole system differently. And it's my job as a prison minister, as a pastor, is not necessarily my first goal is not necessarily to change the system. My first goal is to reach and change people's lives. That's my first goal. Mm-hmm. But if I can help them also by speaking against some of the things that I see wrong with the prison system, wrong with the court system, wrong with the how Black men get arrested and treated by police, and that whole system, whatever, if I can speak against, jobs and employment, the unemployment, or even homeless shelters and things like that, if there any of those things, because all those things, a lot of inmates come out and they're homeless. And so that's an issue that a lot of men deal with. A lot of them come out and they have drug addiction. A lot of them come out and have trouble getting custody of their children, all these different things. So, it can branch into many other different areas. And if I see injustice, I feel that I should speak about that. But like I said, my primary mission is to help change the individual. And if I can help in other areas, I do as well.
Well, I hate to be repeating myself, but it seems to be that what greater example of rehabilitation would it be and give legitimacy to the prison system if you, Pastor Fisher, were bringing a Blue Sanders or a Jason Boggs to Bellefonte and say, hey, this works. Not only does this works, but the word that I'm bringing to you works, because what I am imparting to you, I imparted to them, and look what happened to them, and this can work for you too. But then to deny that and to say, we only want people who have never been in the system to come into here to talk to everybody, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because really what you want people to see are your successes. We have a question here from David Preston. Pastor Fisher, we know who David Preston is. He's been with us before. one of our illustrious prior guests, to Pastor Fisher. In your work in prisons in other countries, how would you compare them to U.S. prisons?
Excellent question. And, you know, I've been blessed with opportunities to travel to Bahamas, to Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique, you know, so multiple different, Panama. First of all, a lot of people may not know this, but you know, maybe you watched that show, Locked Up Abroad. It's one of my favorite television shows, but it's on the Investigation Discovery Channel. But I think it's, or Nat Geo, one of those channels. But prisons, and you know, the concept is the same. The facilities differ greatly. I've been in a prison. I was in a prison in Malawi and in East Africa, and there was no roof. And I said, "Oh my goodness!" So they're outside 24 hours a day, and so I said, "Oh my goodness!" And so you know they're making like tents and stuff and things like that, and so those kind of the facilities are definitely different. In the Bahamas, I went to a facility and there were no bathrooms. Like there was a bucket in your cell and that was it. That's all you had. And I was like, oh my. So those kinds of things, those stark differences, you know, people say, oh, the US prisons are a lot easier, but prison is prison in my mind, you know, whether it's, you know, you give me a flat screen TV, that doesn't make it, I mean, I'm still incarcerated. Mm-hmm. You know, some of the conditions, I would say some of the facilities are definitely tougher in other prisons. Like, you know, just no running water, no electricity or no roof and things like that. That's definitely difficult. But as far as, you know, the concept is very similar. The one thing I will say, and sometimes I see this in the US, but I saw this a lot abroad, was the court systems. I mean, generally in the US, not that the courts move fast, but you know, if you're in prison, you know, before you've been convicted, you know, it's usually not that a long amount of time. I met people when I was in Mozambique that had been incarcerated 3 years and still hadn't gone to trial. So usually that kind of corruption or that kind of delay, I don't see that as much in the US. So I would say like the court systems seem to be more organized in the US. But as far as separation from your family and all those aspects, you know, very, very much similar, whether it's abroad, whether it's here. Mm-hmm. Saw many different situations like that. Now, one thing I will say, let me just speak to this one point really quickly. Sorry to go off on such a tangent, but one thing I will say is what you can bring in to the prisons differs greatly. When I went to go visit Blue, I remember they searched everything on me, you know, besides taking my clothes off. You know, they patting you, reaching everywhere. And I remember that was the first time I had ever been searched like that. And I was like, oh my goodness, okay, I don't have anything. And if I did have it, y'all would have found it. But but when I was abroad, like they'll let you bring food into the inmates, let you bring books, let you bring, you know, all those kinds of things. So that's another big difference, you know. So we, like in when I was in Malawi, for instance, like they expect you, if you say I'm a pastor, I'm a minister, and you're coming in to preach, they expect you to bring some food with you. Otherwise, they ain't coming to the service. So, so it's you know, it's just differences like that. So you know, okay, you want us to listen to you preach, or you better have some food or something. So we actually, you know, we brought like all kinds. We brought coffee, we brought sugar, we brought bread, we brought, you know, things, peanut butter, so they can make sandwiches. So yeah, we brought it all. So it's different in that regard. But it was But yeah, it's still people incarcerated, still people separated from their families, still people who have, you know, gone in and out, high recidivism rates. You still see that. You still see corruption. You still see, you still see hopelessness. And I still see, an issue. I still see a problem and an opportunity because of that problem, an opportunity to tell them about Jesus, an opportunity to give them hope, an opportunity to show them, hey, you don't have to live like this. You don't have to think this way, but you can renew your mind in Christ Jesus, since Romans chapter 12, 1 and 2. But and so that's what whether I'm in the U.S. or abroad, that's what I'm there to do.
Mr. Sanders, we got a comment from our Facebook guest for you, and it says that your story of the application being torn up in your face is devastating, and they admire you for not giving up. I mean, there are a lot of people who would have, and would not have been the better for it. Reverend Boggs, anything on the horizon for a new CD?
Well, Omar and I have been discussing a little bit, but we're going to keep that on the low just for now.
Okay.
God chooses what we're going to do, but definitely new music has been coming out, and I've been fortunate and blessed to have the opportunity that I have. 15 years old, I was a high school, an 8th grade dropout. Had a good enough diploma, had enough sense to get a GED, and really in the last 8 years have moved up to a director position, and that just doesn't happen. And so I know that's been nothing but the grace of God.
I know some people have a real negative view of an 8th grade dropout, but for my Philadelphians, I want you to remember that we had a mayor and police commissioner who was also an 8th grade dropout, but he acted like one. But anyway, those of you from Philly know just who I'm talking about.
Really quick, Norman. I just, I know this may not be on the list of things to talk about, but I really just want to congratulate both of these men. They don't realize, they've talked about how I have poured into them, but and I've preached at Jason's church. Blue and I have had many conversations. Actually, I wrote about Blue in my book. I did a music album with Jason, but seeing how their lives have changed over the course of the time that, I met Jason when he was a teenager, and now he'll be 30 next year. Obviously, I saw Blue when he was incarcerated in 2003, and he's been out of prison for like over 15 years now. So they, Jason heads his church. He's a director at his job. Blue started his own company. And this is amazing when I think about it. It's amazing to me. I praise God. It's powerful, just to see these things. And I know, unfortunately, this is not everybody's story, but this is what it could be. This is what, there's no reason that these guys, I know Blue is, he can bench press like 400 pounds, but besides that, they don't have superpowers, so. So it's just it's just beautiful to see these two men come from, and I've seen both of them, obviously I've seen both of them incarcerated in the system and all of that, but to come from that to where they are now, it's amazing. And I think we need, I know there's other stories like their stories, but I think we need to continue to highlight the fact that, people have made it. It doesn't mean the system is fixed. We definitely could use some more fixing, could use some tweaking, some changing. But I just wanted to say that, on publicly that, I'm proud of both of these men, proud of both of them. And I'm here I'm their cheerleader. You know, I'm cheering for them to go and be successful. You know what I'm saying? One of them needs to be, you know, be our next you know, whatever, president, whoever, you know what I'm saying? And just don't forget me, you know what I'm saying?
Going along with what you're saying, oh modest one, I'd like to remind everyone about this book again, your book, Confrontations. And Confrontations, finding faith behind bars. And, you know, one thing I want to say about the book is not a lot about I going this way, going this. It's not a lot about I going that way. There's a whole lot of, can I say this word correctly? Well, anyway, not only what you were giving out, but what Pastor Fisher, what you were getting back. And I know that sometimes, often, not just sometimes, often, it really affected you deeply from someone crying on you, you know, grown man crying, you know, in front of you in prison, which has got to be devastating for someone who's ever been in that type of environment, to relationships that can become lifelong for you. I was very touched by your story, and I called it Bridging the Gap, where I think it's entitled Christianity versus Muslim. And the relationships that you establish then, and the communication that went on, and how the scriptures spoke to you and really determined even how you would answer what it could have been a really adversarial relationship, but being led by the Spirit to come out with an answer that was both not just pleasing to your soul, but also really softened the listeners up. Would you could talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and you know, Jason knows about this a lot as well in the work that we've done. But in going into the prisons, obviously, not everybody. You say Christian rap, you say whatever. Not everybody that comes out is going to be necessarily Christian or even believe in Christianity. One of the stories in that chapter, Christian versus Muslim, I was actually in. That was with the Saints Prison Ministry, so we were playing basketball. And then at halftime, we shared the word of God. And I went and sat down next to one of the brothers that was incarcerated there, two of the brothers who were incarcerated there. And we struck up a conversation, and they came right at me, you know, said, they told me, that told me about, their beliefs and things like that, which they were followers of Islam. And I believe what the Bible says, and I believe that I believe Jesus is Lord and that He is the only way. But I also believe we're called to love everybody, treat our neighbors as ourselves, as we'd want to be treated. So even though I didn't necessarily agree with everything, I was still able to love them. And I remember, I think if I recall correctly, I told them, I said, I want to write you guys, and that sparked something on the inside for them, because I knew what it felt like, because people had told me what it felt, that isolation when you're in prison and people forget you. And so I said, hey, give me your information. I'll write you. Even though they're Muslim, I'm Christian, they were ready to spar, not spar physically, but verbally with me. I said, hey, after we got done talking, and they went back and said, do you really believe Jesus is the Christ and all that? And which was, it's okay. We can have that conversation. But then when I said, when I wanted to keep in touch with them and form a relationship with them and sort of love them continue to love them, even though I wasn't going to be in the prison, I think that spoke to them. And I was able to form, these kinds of relationships with these guys and keep in touch with them. And a lot of guys, I remember Brother Starks from the book told me, he said he called me his angel, a couple years later after that. I tried to help him out the best I could with his case and everything, and really just be supportive for him. Every time he wrote me, write him back, and just showed him love. And I didn't, it wasn't about, I wasn't trying to force necessarily my beliefs on him or anything like that. Just show him the love of Jesus. And I feel like in some situations, hey, that's what I'm called to do. And he felt loved. He introduced me to his whole family. As I told you, Norman, his sister actually became a supporter of my ministry. He had told his sister so much about me, she started sending me money to help me go and visit other inmates. And so it was just a blessed occasion. So you never know what type of relationship is going to come out of a situation, and it may start kind of tense or something like that. But I truly believe in just being led by the Spirit, walking in the love of Christ, and seeing where that goes.
Amen. Gosh, it sounds like a reverend name. You get caught up in it.
I've been preaching too much.
I'm telling you, no. Let your light shine. Let your light shine. We're about getting close to closing time, and I'd just like to get a closing statement from everybody, if I could. Your thoughts, your feelings, something you want to share with the public, be it people who are incarcerated or people who are just out here in the world. Just jump in, whoever wants to start off first. I know I'm catching you kind of off guard.
Hey guys,
but
Ethan. And today has been one of those days. We all have those days. And I drove 150 miles almost to help a young man get out of jail, a prison actually, and it didn't work in his favor. He's been in the system since he was 19 years old. He's 35. And so I've seen even today, on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, throughout the year, there's many a times where we're working with so many people to help them, be successful, to help them find a relationship with Jesus Christ. And sometimes it doesn't go your way. And so the one thing that I want to tell everybody is that every flower must grow through dirt. Every message has to have a mess, and every test has to have a testimony. And just because where you're at is not where you have to be. A long time ago, God spoke to me and said, your condition is not your conclusion. 15 years old, 3 felonies, the Jerry Moore, who was a prosecuting attorney at the time, he told me, he said, you're a menace to society. You will never be nothing. You are nothing. And you need to be put under bars is really what he said to me. And so now I have, 3 beautiful children. You might hear my little daughter in the background. We're, like I said, almost 150 miles of driving today. And sorry that the video is sketchy and maybe, you might hear things in the background, but this is really about living what we're preaching. And so this is, in a real life situation, it might always look perfect, but when you're living what you're preaching, when you're going out, you're on the street corners, you're helping the homeless, you're helping those that are selling drugs. We got a rehab program with Redeeming Grace. Our church, actually, I turned a strip club into a church.
I read that. Yeah.
And so, my closing statement is, thank God, number one, for you guys and for his amazing grace through Jesus Christ. And to all the listeners out there, I don't care how bad you've been, what all you've done. I don't care if you're, spending the rest of your life in prison. Your condition is not your conclusion. And if your story is not good, your story's not over. God still has a plan for your life.
Wow. How profound. Blue, would you like to chime in?
Yes, sir. Well, first and foremost, thank all of you gentlemen. It's been a pleasure this afternoon. I'm so grateful for you all. I'm so grateful for the listeners. Continue to pray for me and my family, as I will do you all as well. I just pray that sooner or later, it will get greater later, for us all. There is another side to prison. There is another side to life. And I pray that people change their hearts and minds to continue to move forward in life, no matter what has happened. It's been a lot that Omar doesn't even know that I've had to been through in this life. I have no excuses. Everything I did or didn't do was my own doing. I was in control and knew exactly what was going on. But enough was enough. So for anybody out there that's in a situation, prayer changes things. Get somebody like an Omar, like a Jason, that is a good ear to listen to, that can guide you in a better direction than the direction you possibly can be taking now. And just know that it will get greater later. And if you need me, I'm always available anytime of the day or night. My information is, you can get my information. Please give me a call, an email, a text, or anything. And I'll always be here for anybody who needs me. Thank you all. The pleasure was mine. And until the next time.
And you didn't get it in there, but the contact would be Blue at Bulldog Window Cleaning LLC.com.
Yes, sir.
Correct? Okay. That's Blue at Bulldog Window Cleaning LLC.com. I think that a lot of young men really need to follow your example, Blue. I mean, it's really an example of courage, determination, focus. Thank you very much. Reverend Fisher.
Amen. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And I just wanted to make sure I brought in some scripture, Romans 12:1-2, and we're talking about being transformed here. And it says right there, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I believe that transformation happens through Jesus Christ. And like Blue said, we're praying. Like Jason said, it doesn't have to be the conclusion. We believe in change. And unfortunately, so many in our society, we put people in prison and don't believe they've changed, don't give them opportunities once they come out. But I believe that people can change, and I believe I'm just a vessel being used by God to help people change. And so I want to encourage more people to do what I'm doing. And I didn't say this at the beginning, but I want to say it now. Sometimes people ask me, well, how did you get involved? It's not that hard. You call up a facility, especially, I know some facilities don't allow people in who have criminal records, but keep calling, call up a facility. 'Cause a lot of prisons, the first prison that I went to on my own by myself, Bayside State Prison, I think it's called, in New Jersey. I called up the chaplain. I told her what I wanted to do. I wanted to come and share with the men in the facility. All she said was, we can't pay you, but you can come in. And filled out some paperwork, and I came into the prison and shared with the men. So it's not hard. There's thousands of prison ministries. Our prison ministry is Making Others Righteous, which you can find at www.makingothersrighteous.com. You can get involved with us. I'm also involved with the Saints Prison Ministry. There's, maybe there's one at your church, or even if you don't want to do it through a ministry, you can do it on your own. There's many ways to get involved and to try to help. Because like Blue said, there's not a lot of rehabilitation going on inside of these facilities. Not a lot at all. And a lot of men are coming out, men, women, and children. I don't want to say just men are coming out and are going right back in. And that's because they're not being transformed. They're just changing their location, from wherever they lived. Now they're living at prison for however many years they have, or months or years they have to live there. And then they go right back, and there's no true transformation. And so I'm praying that inmates get transformed And like Jason said, we have to live this thing, and we're going in, we're working, we're helping them know how they can be transformed. And if you don't want to go in, like one of my deacons says, Deacon Anderson from St. Philip's Baptist Church, if you don't want to go in, he said, I ain't going into prison, but I give you some money so that to help you go. So help somebody else go. Help somebody like Blue, somebody like Jason, somebody like me, support a prison ministry, because that helps support the work that we do. And a lot of times prison ministries, we don't get a lot of support because people don't see the work we do. They don't see us going into prisons. They don't see us speaking at the homeless shelter, going and talking to the drug dealer on the corner. They don't see a lot of that work. But it's a lot. There are a lot of us that are doing a lot of good work and could use your support. God bless you all.
And where are you located? You're primarily working out of Philadelphia?
Yeah, I'm primarily my home base is Philadelphia, and I go to prisons all around Philadelphia area, state of Pennsylvania, Jersey, New York primarily, but then I go other places as well, North Carolina, Texas, California, and then out of the country at least once a year. I try to travel out of the country, abroad, and speak at prisons abroad. Okay,
Raven Boggs, where are you, your prime area of
I'm in Brandywine, West Virginia right now, and
okay.
It's the great mountain state, almost heaven. And
yeah.
So, I got to travel. I travel from West Virginia to work every single day, about an hour one way, just to keep a job. But our ministry is Redeeming Grace Outreach Worship Center, and you can get that on rgowc.com. And you could also, call us as well, 540-560-0680. We have prison ministry with Omar. We have men's group, women's group, discipleship programs. We have a clothing ministry, a food pantry, a homeless ministry. We have if you could think of it, we pretty much do it now. It's amazing what God is doing. We're reaching anywhere from 7,000 to 15,000 people every month online.
Wow, fantastic. How about you, Mr. Saunders?
Well, I am based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'll be here for quite some time. So any of the listeners that need my help, or please contact me, 704-287-0928. The email blue@bulldogwindowcleaningllc.com. Follow me on Instagram, bulldog_window_cleaning_LLC. And please feel free. I'm here if I'm needed.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I thank all of you. I was looking for something to close out with that would be very fitting for the program. And I first thought of John Donne, No Man is an Island. Then I looked up Joan Baez. She had the same thing, No Man is an Island. I thought that would fit. But I went to the website, the Making Others Righteous website, and I think this typifies all of you, and in particular, Pastor Omar Fisher, where you quote from Mark 10:35-45, for even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many. And that seems like what all of you are doing. And I know there are politicians and government leaders and social activists and many faith leaders who listen to this station and this broadcast. Not only this country, but the civilized world is looking at this time in history as an opportunity to look at ourselves and consider what we can do to improve the lives of those around us. And I'm looking for some spiritual inspiration, and just directed to Romans 14:7-13. For none of us lives to himself, and no one dies to himself. For if we live to the Lord, and if we die to the Lord. Therefore, whether we live or die, we are the Lord's. For to this end Christ died and rose and lived again, and that he might be Lord of both the dead and the living. But why do you judge your brother? Or why do you show contempt for your brother? For we shall stand before the judgment seat of Christ. For it is written, as I live, says the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, every tongue shall confess to God, end quote. So then each of us shall give account of himself to God. Therefore, let us not judge one another anymore, but rather resolve this. This is important, politicians, not to put a stumbling block or cause to fall in our brother's way. Think about that as you consider legislation to truly reintegrate returning citizens to a life of contribution rather than feeling perpetual retribution. I thank my guests for bringing wisdom through experience to our listening audience. I pray that those of you in policy-making positions are listening. If you are listening, but still shackled to non-productive past practices, perhaps it's time for you to leave office. It's a new day. We thank you for listening to another episode of Issues and Answers. I am Norman A. Carter Jr. Both I and WCEG wish all of you, my guests, and all of you listeners and viewers, we wish you well. Thank you so much for being a part of our program.